Hello and welcome to today's broadcast. So, obstruction of justice, a fabricated Christmas card, rising authoritarianism around the world, the usual was my introduction to today's topic. Hello to any regular viewers and hello to any repeat viewers, and thank you for tuning in. So what's with the obstruction of justice? Well, I have a picture up on my screen of Trump and a comment from a former federal prosecutor, Joyce Alene, federal year prosecutor of 25 years and a legal analyst on MSNBC. She writes, still sounds like obstruction of justice to me, because she's referring to a recent interview between former President Donald Trump and some right-wing journalist dude. I don't even remember, but somebody from Fox. So Trump expressed the sentiment directly, because this is a direct quote: "If I didn't fire Comey, they were looking to take down the President of the United States. I don't think I could have survived if I didn't fire him, because it was like a hornet's nest." So people on the internet naturally commented, "Oh, wow, what an own. He's admitting to obstructing justice." But of course, he's Donald Trump. He's ignoring things that may or may not be legally incriminating for him, because he's working within a system of trying to rile up his base. And he circumvents the law and uses appeals to and incitements to violence. It's a strategy of a stochastic terrorist and a fascist, someone who knows they can break the rules and get away with it. Donald Trump is ideally situated as a fascist leader because he has a lot of experience in using the mechanisms of American justice, lengthy American justice, with lots of avenues for appeal, lots of avenues to delay justice and thereby deny justice, to evade legal consequences for breaking the law over and over again, and for finding loopholes in honor systems. He was ideally situated, high profile. That really helps with political success, but high profile specifically for the fabricated attribute of being incredibly wealthy. Now, I say fabricated because some people understand that Donald Trump's claim to being a self-made billionaire is a claim with a lot of holes, namely that he was given $413 million by his father, and that his multiple bankruptcies and multiple defaulted on loans and forgiven loans mean he's been operating a type of pyramid scheme business whereby he trades on his self-marketing skills to establish a reputation as somebody wealthy that he was able to establish because he was gifted a huge amount of money, $413 million. And that this reputation for wealth he was able to use to build more wealth and acquire more assets, even if they're assets that he still owes a lot of money on, and was using the position of the presidency to delay paying off those loans in part of the multiple ways he was able to exploit being president and achieving an office that he may not have even expected to attain initially. He may have been expecting to lose. Michael Cohen reported that he didn't expect to win the election, but he expected to be able to use the attention and the grievance energy to generate additional profit, to be able to spin off his own television channel to promote his own goods and services. He has a long history of having unsuccessful businesses, Trump Steak, Trump Vodka. He was hoping his run for the presidency initially would really help boost his products. And it certainly has generated a lot of grift income for Trump. He made himself synonymous with strongman anti-migrant policies that have a lot of appeal amongst Americans, particularly Americans who've been profoundly deceived and repeatedly lied to by right-wing news agencies such as Fox, OAN, Newsmax, that tap into people's appetite for someone else to blame for their problems and make all sorts of extraordinary claims about migrants being just given everything for free, that you can make your way to America and the government gives you phones and cars and houses. Now, those are not claims that are based in reality, but they are claims that appeal to people who just want to whinge. Like Mrs. Jennifer Crumbly, who wrote to Donald Trump and said, I celebrate you. My husband and I are real Americans, and why don't we get things when migrants are getting handouts of all these things? Why aren't we getting those things? So I think that undermines the idea of Republicans always anti-social safety nets and anti-handouts. They are pro-handouts. It's just they're pro-handouts for a smaller subset of Americans than maybe rational people would recognize as Americans. American residents, American workers, people who have green cards, people who have temporary visas, like my family. We, if we had a storm knock down a property we'd bought, although we haven't bought a property, but if we did, would you exclude us from federal assistance? Would you say no vaccine for you because you're not real American? People who are contributing to America, people who've come to America to add. It's a fundamental truth that America is additive, and it's a fundamental dishonest position to say that migrants detract from America's greatness. Migrants are additive to the greatness that is America. And even though American exceptionalism is often taught in schools, and then some people backlash very heavily against that by having a different form of negative exceptionalism, in which they say America is uniquely terrible. Both positions have their problems. When you say America is perfect, and everybody has to promote this in order to get political buy-in. So you have to pretend that America is without fault and that America has no dystopian elements or unsatisfactory elements where some people are underpaid or some people can't get access to healthcare. You should just minimize that and refer to it as little as possible if you want buy-in from positive Americans. That has the effect of postponing, delaying, and making improvements very difficult. But also, yes, being fundamentally negative about America, having the reverse of American exceptionalism and saying America is worse than anything else in history ever and is so terrible, that negates a lot of truth about what's good about America and what is an example of democracy and peaceful transfer of power and other things like that America should be celebrated for in order to build on those elements that are good. We should be able to be clear-eyed and note that, yes, the 1619 Project has a lot of good points that we can learn from, that there's a lot of foundational white supremacy in the Constitution. The Three-Fifths Compromise was not asking slave-owning states to compromise on their power. It was giving them additional power, because the Three-Fifths Compromise was the policy of the constitutionally mandated policy of counting every three out of every 5 enslaved Black human bodies into population totals to swell the political impact of voters who resided in slave-owning states, to politically magnify the impact of the votes of slave owners and their slavocratic economies, because 3 out of every 5 of those enslaved people were not given the right to vote. They weren't given 3/5 of a vote. They were given nothing. The 3/5 refers purely to the additional abuse heaped on them of exploiting their existence as a mechanism to grant slave-owning states more power relative to relatively more abolitionist states. Because when you have a higher population count than you actually merit in terms of numbers of voting allowed Americans, your power is distorted in a positive way. You have amplifying power. So that's a constitutional flaw in America, which is perpetuated through also the constitutionally mandated electoral college system, another compromise that awards slave-centric states disproportionate power over abolitionist states, and was instituted as a way of reassuring them that they would not ever be compelled by abolitionist states to give up their slaves and to give up the extraordinary and obscene levels of wealth generated through a slave economy, of the indecent levels of profit you acquire that compound your wealth when you don't pay people for their labor, and in fact you own and you destroy the autonomy of the people who labor for you and who you derive profit from. So those are some of the foundational problems with America, and we ideally are moderates who acknowledge these realities and who don't require teachers to be intimidated by new Republican legislation that says don't teach the 1619 Project and don't teach anything contentious or controversial. It's a way of saying to teachers, if we feel that you're giving your opinion in the classroom, i.e. if you're saying slavery is wrong or America's response to slavery was wrong, or you're pointing out the less perfect parts of the Constitution, then you shouldn't be teaching, because our children should be preserved from the task of having to process those imperfections as part of their worldview and their America view, their understanding of what makes America America, and what the dynamics of American history arose from initially, and what is continuing to influence the enforced impoverishment of a subset of the American population. So that as much as people may want to cling to happy truths that say, yes, we're all American, we're all on equal footing, there is a basis of untruth to that, in that there have been no reparations made yet, and there is an ongoing habitual pattern of eroding opportunities for wealth building, such as real estate appraisers routinely and frequently undervaluing the homes of people whose houses have evidence of African American habitation, who have family photos up. And this is evidenced over and over again at an anecdotal level, but also by analysis conducted by industry experts such as Redfin, to say there is routine underappraisal of the value of African American owned houses. We should know these things, we should deal with these things, and we should model it to each other and for each other, and we should call out people who continue to hide from reality in the comfortable, delusional world of Fox News, which mixes in some half-truths with some truths and some lies, because a mixture of those things has more potency, is able to stick like a burr to already accepted common sense truths, as well as pull people in the direction of becoming more xenophobic, which means anti-other, anti-foreigner. All right, so let's moving on. I only have a few more minutes to talk. Someone wrote a poem about the effects of their long-term COVID. Shall we have a little listen? Let's see. Nope, it's not. Oh, it is loading. Okay.
It's hard work, passing time quickly, forcing your way upstream, a rising resistance with every step, like running in a dream. Or it's like non-Newtonian fluids, okay? It thickens up the more you stress. So don't work so hard. Glide through. With time, you get more doing less. I swill the days in long, lazy circles, so they vortex out the bottle. I can't stand living through choking bubbles, juddering gulps, throttling glottal. No. Keep meals at set times. Know how far you can walk. Deploy it as your yardstick. Learn how much you can talk. Let the days fall into beats like the drums of a known song. A muster picking up your feet. An ode for the lost days gone. If you think this sounds dull, well, this is just a taster. I've been feasting at that buffet. I am the professional time waster. Because I caught the bug and never got better. Each morning I play a scratch card. The prize is whether I feel 1% less dreadful. And good news, out of 523 tries, I've won a handful. But I can't work. I wrote this from bed. So I have no choice but to finally dice the minutes until they make me cry. Days ground, fired, pained into glass houses, to watch years of sun-bleach streak the sky, creasing like the growing lines of my hands. I watch my muscles shrink like grapes in the sun. A watch spent months burnt whole for a few more chips at the wheel, all in hope recovery will be won. This is where this poem is ending. It's only my life to be giving. The stiff rod of hope keeps me going and wasting time for a living.
All right. Well, that was a poem by a man named Callum O'Dwyer, who is an actor, poet. There you go. And has been an actor and poet since 2014, kicking off the Edinburgh Fringe run. So that is sad for him if he's too depleted by COVID to be able to work. That would be really difficult. All right. So that was part of his explanation of what it feels like to be someone struggling with long COVID. So he writes that his case of COVID was assessed to be mild, and now he can't live independently, can't work, and has to rest before and after a shower. So he just wants to put that in mind. Somebody else wrote a pertinent comment underneath about how it was COVID is, or contracting COVID can be like playing Russian roulette and a variety of bullets in the weapon, because you could lose your life, or you could have a debilitating condition, or you could have a mild case that still leaves you unable to work or live independently, or you could have a genuinely mild case in which it's similar to a cold and you don't notice. Although people who have mild cases initially may still find themselves with a long form of long COVID or post-COVID syndrome. I don't want to get it. I don't know if I've ever had it or not. Maybe I have, and I've had one of those cases that don't really register. But yes. All right, so that was Callum O'Dwyer. So you can find him on YouTube, Callum for Callum. Then my last point before I go is that when Trump he talked to Mark Levine. Okay, when Trump confessed that yes, he fired Comey because he thinks his presidency wouldn't have survived otherwise. A journalist for the Washington Post makes this really important point, and it was really important for me to share it with everybody, that from Trump's perspective, this is not a self-own at all. His starting premise is that whatever corrupt means, he uses to win elections and enrich himself. Those methods are all intrinsically above reproach, so any examination of his wrongdoing is inherently illegitimate. And he's selling that to his base, the idea that don't pay attention to the findings of investigations. they are all illegitimate in challenging him because he is the one true emperor, god, king, savior of America, the bulwark against the type of people who embrace migrants, who don't want to cordon off America into save everything that's good for real Americans, i.e. white, preferably Christian Americans. He is speaking for them and to them, and his ideas become their ideas, and their ideas are reflected back to him. He picks up on what works and what is popular with them for a perpetually self-reinforcing bond between them, between a fascist and fascist followers, to say all investigations of me are illegitimate. I am the only one with the bravery to stand against modern culture that says, don't be racist, don't denigrate Mexicans, don't denigrate people of color. He embraces their worst impulses and legitimizes their worst impulses. For that reason, he isn't just welcomed as a politician, he is welcomed as a savior, because he swims against the tide of modernity and civilization, as did Hitler. Hitler said, I promise you, Germany, I will put you first. Everything that decency asks for, I will throw away. I will persecute people and help you give yourselves over to a frenzy of gleeful hatred. And people forget the glee that is part of hate. They say, oh, haters are miserable, terrible people. Terrible, yes, sure. But hate can be enrapturing. Hate can be involving. Hate can build community. And people can construct a form of patriotism that is not just the elevation of a country to say hooray for Germany or hooray for America. Hate can be the enzyme and the catalyst for a cohesive bonding agent of unity against an enemy, unity against a scapegoated, marginalized group of people, be they non-legal immigrants or even legal immigrants. Because legal immigrants, many people lost their temporary protected visas during Trump's tenure in office. Many things were made more difficult for people to migrate to the United States. I know my family were only able to get a visa because there was a pre-existing an arrangement between Australia and the United States that preceded Trump, and he hadn't sabotaged that yet. So my husband was still able to get a visa for this job he had been offered, because he's a smart man with valuable skill levels. And America welcomes smart people and understands that they contribute. Not just smart people who have their qualifications recognized, but people with the smarts and the aptitude to aspire to more, who want to come to America because they want to build something, even when that something is a better life for their families. It involves building, and the secondary outcome of that is benefit to America collectively. America collectively benefits from the energy of migrants, the energy that lifts educational standards, the energy that lifts tertiary education outcomes, the energy that lifts levels of entrepreneurship and builds America better every day. So that's a message I'm happy to repeat till I'm blue in the face, because it's a fundamental truth, and it's a truth that fascism thrives off denying. And when you go through history and you go, why did things happen? There's always some truth that's being suppressed and a falsity that's being elevated and used to galvanize and energize people. So under communism, the falsity that's celebrated is we're all equal and we can use a political system to give perfect equality. It's not true. You can't aspire to perfect equality. You can aspire to a cohesive society with good safety nets and strong ways to give everybody the opportunity to participate in nation building, as well as business building and participating in the economy and in getting married to somebody, a consenting adult of their choice by mutual consent, etc. All of those good things that civilization celebrates are often denied when people fall in love with the authoritarian idea that everything should be subjugated to the will of a charismatic parent who sells a concept of patriotism, a form of patriotism that often revolves around hating people. So the challenge is almost to find a way to respond to that hate with love, to find a way to bring on board decent Republicans who should reject not only Trump, but his enablers in the Republican Party who are doing his bidding of using the big lie about the election as a justification and a rationalization to harm Black voters, to deny Black voters political power, to make choices and to pass legislation that suppresses their ability to vote in a targeted way that says, we understand at a statistical level that many Black voters choose to vote Democrat. We will make it harder for those people who have two jobs and who don't work, or who work at times when the election booths are open. We're going to make it more difficult to use drop boxes. We're going to make it more difficult to vote on Sundays. We're going to make it more difficult to use the type of ID. I'll come to you. All right, well, thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day and talk to you again soon. Bye.